All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's Shir should be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavril Tzvi, and for Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and B'schus L'Refu Shlema B'Shalom ben Sarah Rachel, Miriam Bas Sarah, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today, we are on page 231 in the Ora Vigdor, for those who are following along. And today, we are going to be talking about this concept of, we know Bitachon and how we're supposed to apply it, that we have to do our ishtadlus and we have to trust in the outcome. Now, today, we're going to move on to understanding that all these things, ishtadlus, it's a very difficult concept because although we know that whatever we do is really meaningless, but we only do it because Hashem wants us to do, and He asked of us to do that, it's a mitzvah, and we trust in the outcome, it has nothing to do with our ishtadlus, we're going to be testing every single one of us, every single day. That's what Hashem is doing to us. And one of the things He tests us with is something called the test of authority. The test of authority is a person who is in a position in their company or in a business, or not only in financial, but in another aspect, in a social circle, or whatever it is, and they believe that they have power over another individual to kind of dictate their outcome of whether it be, in this case, it's financial, right? So dictate their parnasa. And so we are going to see over here that the issue over here, first of all, is that this person in authority, first of all, thinks that they could dictate actually how much you make. They think that they're in that position. And secondly, there's another mistake that we're going to come into, is that the person of authority, say a boss, a company owner, he has a bunch of employees and he feels obligated to make sure that they get paid, right? Responsible to make sure that they get paid. And so what he might do at times is justify some inappropriate, non-kosher business practices in order to make sure that he has enough money in order to make payroll. Or he might even teach his employees how to not be as erlach, not be so straight when it comes to certain things. If you can hide it, no one's going to notice, kind of to do business unjustly. And so today we're going to talk about that a bit, and to understand that a person who has bitachon and is in the position, whether it's a manager, a boss, or you have your position over other people in a social circle, that you need to be super careful as to how you deal with that. From the perspective as you think you actually rule over that person, A, and B, also, what are you doing in the back end to make sure that it stays afloat? For instance, the business, to make sure that you have the money. Are you going to go about and maybe do something when it's tight and get nervous? You say, I'm going to do something that's not kosher just to justify the business practice, the payroll. Now, the test of authority. Sometimes Hashem causes one man to be in control of the livelihood of another person, for instance, like a boss. Hashem does that to test whether he will continue to serve him, or rebel against him, to see how you do in that position. Such an opportunity offers one of the strongest means of testing and tempting another person to do an aveir, because it's so easy, and yet at the same time you can justify it. We are speaking of various people who have responsibility for others. For instance, Kamelech, like a king, who feeds his army and his servants. And then says, similarly, they are officers of the ministers of the king. In addition, they are supervisors. And together they are servants, and they are officials, their wives, and their relatives. The people who are in charge actively to pursue the means to raise money to be able to support the livelihood of other people who are beneath them, meaning that are look up to them, who rely on them, I should say, for their paycheck. In ways that are good or bad, and you have two ways of doing that. And he goes, for instance, and the foolish person among them, Yite b'shlosha panim makes 3 errors in such a situation. So today we're going to touch on the first of the errors. We might touch a little bit on the second as well, but there are 3 errors that this person is making when they go about thinking that they're in that position of power or even control of the outcome. And again, remember, we're Baal Bitachons over here. We have to remember that whether it's for you or for someone else, the trust still has to be in Hashem in the outcome. And he says, the first mistake he says, first, when this boss, for instance, is accumulating wealth, he thinks it's his money. Whereas he's actually taking what Hashem decreed that he should take. And he's receiving it from Hashem. But because he thinks it's up to him, he sometimes does it in shameful and wicked ways, like we said, that sometimes the boss thinks that it's mine to take, and even though I might not do it in an appropriate way, it's still mine, and I'm allowed to do that. And he says over here, this money that would have come to him anyhow, whether he did it a crooked way or not, would have been by him. He'd have no reason to do it in a crooked way. Had he sought to get it in a normal way, in a kosher way, he would have reached his goal and desire of having money anyway. So it doesn't matter how he goes about it. If it's decreed by Hashem that someone should have something, you don't have to go about it in a crooked way. The same way we spoke about when we're talking about personal finance, personal health, right? You shouldn't go above and beyond the call of duty to put your health at risk in order to make money, or put your health at risk for something else. Why? Because you just have to do your shtadlus. And the same thing over here. When you're the owner of a company, you have to make payroll. I know it's nerve-wracking at times because the money is tight. But don't think for 1 second that because you're going to go do something in a non-kosher way, that's you deserve it. Because sometimes you could talk yourself into it. Say like, well, I have no choice. I got to make payroll. So don't make that mistake. Now, that's the first one. The second mistake he's going to make, and I'm going to touch on this because it's a little longer. His second mistake is that he thinks that all the money he acquired is for his own sustenance, meaning for his own personal well-being. And if he gives it away to whether it's his employees or his family or somebody else, he thinks by doing so, he's doing them a favor. That when you are giving someone their paycheck or payroll, you might, obviously they earned it, but when you're giving it to someone else, you think that, no, it's my money, and by me giving it to you, I'm doing you a favor. It's me that's providing that for you. And the mistake, he doesn't understand that there are 3 kinds of financial support or assets that are being given to him by Hashem. And we're going to get into this tomorrow. But the high level that we're going to talk about over here is that when a person makes money, it's divided into 3 categories. One of them is the category that Hashem promised every single person that he's going to provide them with their sustenance. So one little part, small part, is for you, yourself, and you, that no one else. Then there's a second category is for you to take care of your wife and your children. And then there's a third category is, well, wife and children, everybody else, whether it's tzedakah or whatever it is you're going to give. And there's a third category that we're going to touch on tomorrow is money that you will never ever benefit from. It's something that we spoke about in the past. Basically, it's money that goes to someone else at some point. You might have X amount of money today, but at some point, either through in your lifetime, you might lose that money to someone else, or give it away to someone else, or you might actually, when the individual dies, the people who yarshin him, the inheritors, they will get that money. So that's 3 categories: is money for you, your own sustenance for you to live, money for your wife, your children, everybody else, and money that you will never ever enjoy in this lifetime at all. And so tomorrow we're going to touch on that, and that's part of that second mistake that they're going to make, thinking that again, the high level of that is this individual making the mistake, thinking that all the money that he makes is for him and for him only, for nobody else. Thank you, everyone, for joining us all here today, and I love you all.